What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected icons walks into a morning show, expecting a friendly conversation, only to walk straight into a trap? This is the moment Denzel Washington reached his breaking point, live on air. And trust me, you've never seen anything like this before. Hit that subscribe button and sound off in the comments, because this interview will have you rethinking everything you thought you knew about daytime television. It was a sweltering Tuesday morning under the studio lights as Denzel Washington stepped onto the set of The View. Calm, collected, the same way he'd shown up to hundreds of interviews before. But something was off. The air buzzed, not with excitement, but with something colder, more calculated. Denzel sat down across from the panel. Joy Behar leaned in, a tight smile curling on her face as she fingered through her notes. She wasn't here to chat. She was here to corner him. "Denzel, welcome to The View," she began, syrupy sweet. "Interesting timing, don't you think? Promoting a new film right after some, let's say, questionable choices." Denzel's brow furrowed, but his voice remained cool. "Good morning, Joy. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by questionable choices." The Joy leaned back, eyes gleaming like a predator that smelled blood. "Oh, I'm talking about your comments, about faith, family, the kind of values that a lot of people think are, well, outdated." The studio tensed. Cameras stilled. Audience members held their breath. Denzel didn't blink. "I've always been clear about what guides me: faith, family, discipline. I don't see how that makes me out of touch. If anything, I think we need more of those values, not less." Joy's voice sharpened. "But don't you think, given your platform, that you have a responsibility to evolve? Some of your statements could be seen as judgmental, even hurtful to certain communities." The other hosts shifted uncomfortably. Denzel's publicist stood just off camera, clearly on edge. But Denzel subtly raised a hand, signaling her to stay back. "There's a fundamental misunderstanding here," he said, voice measured but with steel underneath. "Having faith, holding on to traditional values, that doesn't mean I'm judging anyone. It means I live by principles. That's it." Joy actually scoffed. "Loud, dismissive. Principles, is that what we're calling it? Because from where I sit, it looks a lot more like you're using your celebrity to push an agenda that belongs in the last century." The audience stirred. Phones came out. People knew something rare was happening. Denzel's hands, once still, now gripped the arms of his chair. "An agenda," he echoed, stunned. "I came here to talk about my film, about storytelling, about the craft, not to have my character shredded on national television." "Oh, please," Joy sneered, waving her hand. "No one's shredding your character. We're just asking you to take responsibility for the impact of your words. When you speak about faith and family like that, millions hear it as a rejection of their lives." Denzel leaned forward now, his voice tightening. "That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. You're twisting my words, Joy. That's not journalism. That's theater." Joy's tone turned mocking. "Is it? Because I've got quotes, your words, from your interviews, and they're not vague." She held up a thick stack of papers, waving them for the cameras. It wasn't just a critique. It was an ambush. Denzel stared at the stack, then spoke slowly, his voice dropping to a razor, thin whisper. "Those quotes were from a conversation about my own struggles, my personal walk with faith. They weren't meant as a roadmap for anyone else." "But that's how they're heard," Joy pressed, not letting up. "When someone like you speaks, it ripples. You don't get to hide behind personal belief when it causes real world harm." And just like that, the studio became a pressure cooker. And Denzel Washington, normally the picture of restraint, was one breath away from walking out. Denzel's eyes flashed. Something raw, something real. The audience caught a glimpse of the man behind the polished Hollywood exterior. "Joy," he said, his voice low and edged with warning. "I've spent my entire career telling stories that matter. Stories that inspire. Stories that uplift. I've never used my platform to tear anyone down. Can you say the same? The question landed like a stone in still water, sharp, unignorable. Joy's confident smile faltered, if only for a breath, before hardening. "Don't you dare turn this on me," she snapped. "I'm not the one who needs to answer for outdated views. I'm not the one whose words have hurt people. Hurt people." Denzel's voice rose, his composure beginning to fracture. "The only person hurting people right now is the one across from me, using this platform to ambush a guest who came here in good faith." The audience sat frozen. The other co-hosts shrank into their seats. Joy leaned in, her voice sharp and mocking. "Good faith," she scoffed. "You call spouting narrow-minded ideas good faith. You call ignoring the damage your rhetoric does to real people good faith." Denzel stood slowly, every inch of his towering presence commanding the room. The camera captured the steel in his eyes. "Narrow-minded," he said, voice soft but ironclad. "Letty, you don't know the first thing about me, about my heart, my principles. You've spent 10 minutes attacking a man you've never met, twisting his words into something they were never meant to be." A tension crested. This was no longer a disagreement. It was a collision of worlds. In fact, she smiled dangerously. "Oh, so now you're going to intimidate me," she said with a theatrical laugh. Typical. When men like you can't handle questions, they resort to intimidation. The word intimidation hit like a thunderclap. Denzel stared at her, stunned. "Joy," I stood up out of respect, for myself and for this conversation. "If you want to twist that into something threatening, that says more about you than me. Does it?" She shot back, her tone drenched in condescension. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you can't handle a strong woman challenging your outdated beliefs." "Is that what they taught you in church?" That was it. The line that detonated everything. Denzel's calm shattered. "Stop," he said, the words slicing through the studio. "Just stop. You want to challenge my views? Fine. But you will not mock my faith, and you will not turn my presence into some kind of threat." Joy's eyes lit up. She had struck a nerve, and she loved it. "I'm not twisting anything," she said coldly. "I'm calling out the pattern. You can't take criticism, so you lash out. You cling to the past and call it virtue. Outdated." Denzel echoed, his voice rising. "You think faith is outdated. Believing in something greater than yourself is outdated." He stepped forward. Not aggressively, but with gravity. "Let me tell you what's outdated. Using your platform to tear people down instead of lifting them up. That's what's tired. That's what's toxic." The studio had become a pressure chamber, and it was seconds from exploding. Joy leaned back, smirking. "Spare me. You've made a career out of the same character, the noble man, the moral compass. But when it's time for real growth, you hide behind the same tired lines." That broke something in him. "You want to talk about my career?" Denzel boomed. "I've spent 4 decades telling human stories. I've played kings and killers, fathers and fallen men. I've fought to show the beauty and brokenness in people's lives. Every role, every word, meant to connect, to heal, to elevate." Joy tried to interject, firm, unwavering. "No. You've had your say. Now it's my turn." He pointed, not in anger but in clarity. "You sit here every day, tearing people down. You mock, you ridicule. You turn complexity into punchlines." Silence gripped the room. Not a whisper, not a cough. "And you dare talk to me about growth, about evolution." His voice filled the space like a storm rolling in. "You've been doing the same cynical act for decades. Bitterness dressed up as journalism. Every guest just another target for your entertainment." Joy's face drained of color, but her pride wouldn't let her yield. "I'm not bitter. I ask the hard questions. I hold people accountable." "Accountable to who?" Denzel snapped. "To you. Who made you judge and jury over what people believe? Who gave you the right to define progress by your standards alone?" The final word echoed alone As the studio sat in stunned silence, the co-host sat frozen, eyes darting between Joy and Denzel like spectators at a brutal tennis match, utterly powerless to stop what had erupted into full-blown verbal warfare. "I have the right," Joy declared, her voice trembling just slightly, "because I have a platform, and I use it to speak truth to power." Denzel scoffed, disbelief cracking through his voice. "Truth to power. Joy, you are the power. You've got a nationally syndicated show, millions of viewers, corporate sponsors lining up. You're not some fearless truth teller. You're the establishment, and you silence anyone who doesn't fall in line." The blow landed. Joy's composure wavered for the first time. "That's not fair. I fight for the underdog. I fight for the people who don't have a voice." "Do you?" Denzel asked, stepping closer to the table. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you fight for ratings. You manufacture outrage because outrage sells. You come after people like me because you know it'll trend." Joy opened her mouth but said nothing. Her lips moved, but no sound came. For the first time in her career, she was speechless. And the saddest part, Denzel continued, his voice softening but never losing its edge. "You probably got into this business to do something meaningful, to inform, to unite, to make a difference. But somewhere along the way, you traded inspiration for provocation." His words struck like a slow, burning fuse. Joy blinked hard, visibly shaken as the brittle armor of sarcasm and control began to splinter. "You decided it's easier to tear people down than lift them up." Denzel went on. "Easier to stir division than foster dialogue. So now here you are, ambushing guests who come here in good faith." Joy tried to regroup. "I'm just doing my job," she muttered. "Is this your job?" Denzel asked, now almost gentle, attacking someone's faith, twisting their words, manufacturing conflict in place of conversation. The questions hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. Joy Behar, always ready with a quip, a rebuttal, a snarl, sat in total silence. Because she had no answers, Denzel looked at her calmly. "If that's your job, then maybe it's time to find a new line of work." A heavy silence dropped across the studio. The audience barely breathed. Joy stared at him, mouth parted, stunned, her eyes flashing with something close to recognition. But Joy Behar didn't spend decades in television by walking away from a fight. Even bruised, she fought back. Her voice returned, sharp, trembling, and unmistakably rattled. "How dare you?" she hissed. "You walk into my house and lecture me on how to do my job. You're an actor, Denzel. You pretend for a living. What gives you the right to stand there and preach to me about truth?" Denzel's gaze didn't flinch. "This isn't your house, Joy. This is a studio, a platform, one that should treat its guests with basic respect. And yes, I'm an actor. But acting has taught me something I think you've forgotten." "Oh, please," Joy snapped, dripping with sarcasm. "Do enlighten me." "It's taught me how to listen," Denzel said. His tone was calm, but cutting. "Every role I've played forced me to understand a person. Their fears, their hopes, their regrets. I had to find their humanity, even when I didn't agree with them." You don't listen. You wait." Joy's face flushed crimson. "I listen plenty," she fired back. "I hear the pain your narrow views, 'cause real people—" "No," Denzel replied firmly. "You don't listen to understand. You listen to strike. You twist people's words into weapons. But there's a difference between hearing someone and seeing them." But now, the other co-hosts were invisible, retreating into their chairs, wishing they could vanish. The audience was riveted, not by spectacle, but by the raw clarity unfolding before them, like watching a mirror shatter in slow motion. Joy's voice rose again, strained and desperate. "You think you're better than the rest of us, that your fame gives you wisdom, but you're just another celebrity who thinks he's a moral compass." Denzel didn't move. "No. I just think someone should finally say what people have been too afraid to tell you." "I'm not here to preach," Denzel said calmly, his voice once again composed. I've shared my personal beliefs in past interviews because people asked. I never pushed them on anyone. Never claimed others had to live the way I do. He looked directly at Joy. But you've spent the last 20 minutes trying to push your beliefs onto me. Trying to guilt me, shame me, make me apologize for simply being who I am. That's not what I was doing, Joy said quickly, but her voice was shaky, unsure. Isn't it? Denzel asked, tilting his head. You brought me here under false pretenses. My team was told this would be about my new film, about my work. Instead, you ambushed me with a political hit job designed to discredit me and paint you as some kind of moral warrior. Joy's jaw tightened. I didn't ambush you. I asked real questions. Real. Denzel's eyebrows lifted. Joy, you accused me of physical intimidation for standing up. You mocked my faith. You claimed I was dangerous to entire communities. You called my legacy irrelevant. If that's your idea of journalism, then your industry is in serious trouble. The studio fell silent as the camera caught every shift in Joy's expression. For the first time, she seemed to really hear her own words. She glanced around the studio like she was just now realizing the weight of what had unfolded. On live television, in front of millions. I was doing my job, she said again, quieter this time, like she was trying to convince herself. No, Denzel said softly. Your job is to inform, to connect, to engage in honest conversation, not to bait your guests, not to stir conflict for ratings, not to tear someone down because they see the world differently than you do. Joy's composure cracked. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Don't I? Denzel asked, and this time there was a trace of sorrow in his voice. Joy, I've been in this business for 40 years. I know what it means to be pushed, pressured, edited, packaged. I've had producers try to reshape me into something I'm not. Joy blinked, caught off guard. For a moment, she seemed to remember that behind Denzel's fame was a man who had also been through fire. But I learned something early on, he continued. You don't let this industry change who you are inside. You don't let controversy matter more than kindness. If you do that, if you start measuring people by clickbait and trending hashtags, you lose yourself. Tears welled in Joy's eyes, though whether it was anger, shame, or something deeper no one could tell. You think I've lost myself, she whispered. Denzel paused, then answered gently. I think somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing the people you interview as people. You started seeing them as headlines, sound bites, content. Joy looked down at her notes, the very stack she'd used to go after him. Her lips trembled. It almost looked like she might break. This was supposed to be about your movie, she murmured, almost to herself. It still can be, Denzel offered. His voice was calm, steady. What could start over? Have a real conversation. One based on respect. For a flicker of a second, Joy looked up at him, and the mask slipped. Behind the TV persona, the audience saw someone tired, maybe even lost, but just as quickly she pulled herself back together. She shook her head slowly. No, I think we've said enough. Denzel gave a slow nod. The moment for redemption had passed. Yes, he said. I think we have. Then he turned to the cameras, bypassing Joy completely, speaking directly to the millions watching. I want to thank everyone who tuned in today. I hope this reminds you of something simple. We're all human. We all have stories. And even when we disagree, we owe each other basic respect. With that, Denzel stood and walked off the set, leaving Joy sitting in stunned silence, the weight of the moment thick in the air. The camera stayed on her just a beat longer. She stared blankly, still processing what had just happened. Then the show cut to commercial. But for those who watched it live, the damage was done, and unforgettable. This wasn't just a celebrity interview gone sideways. This was a reckoning, a breakdown of performance. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments happen when someone dares to stop performing and starts being real. What do you think? Was Denzel too harsh, or was Joy totally out of line? drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping celebrity moments you won't see anywhere else.